Greetings. Good to see everybody. Good to know everybody's out there today. Even though I can't see you, I feel your energy. It's like I'm seeing you. This is Doc Ock coming to you live again from Black Facts headquarters. We've made a few changes around here to try to keep everything on time and working smoothly. We've been reading out of My Life in the Book of Ghosts, one of my all-time favorite books. Haven't read this book in years, so it's really very enjoyable to me to reread a book that I read so many years ago. One of the things I'd forgotten about this book is that it was written in English. And by that, I mean that the names of all the ghosts and all the characters are all in English, as opposed to Yoruba or Twi or some other Wolof or some other language, so that there's no need. So that removes a stumbling block from being able to understand it from a quote unquote Western perspective, because all of us have grown up from a Western perspective as opposed to an African perspective. So I really appreciate that fact in reading this book. So today we're carrying on with the story, but we're going to start with a proverb. Today's proverb is: a home without a woman is like a barn without cattle. Now that's an Ethiopian proverb, which I don't usually like to say an African proverb, because Africa is such a huge, diverse continent that it doesn't really give you a lot of definition to say an African proverb. What exactly does that mean? Does that mean Egyptian? Does that mean Zulu? Does it mean Basuto? At least, I mean, what does it really mean? Doesn't really tell you a lot. So at least in this case, we're able to narrow it down to Ethiopia, okay, which still is a diverse country in and of itself. It's made up of a number of different kingdoms. All right, so much for our history lesson for today. Let's carry on with the story today. And this one is our young hero has moved on now to a new town, and he's attending a ghost mother's birthday function, or at least he's going to move to a new town. So I'm kind of getting a little bit ahead of the story. Let's go ahead and read. As this homeless ghost was in, now you remember the homeless ghost is the one that had him in the log, and he had him trapped, and he keeps tapping on the log and waking him up, and then he wakes up that snake and he coils around him and makes him cry out, and the other ghosts love the sound of it. It's like their radio. So as this homeless ghost was then famous and well known to every prominent ghost because of my cry, which was a very lofty music for them. So one day, a famous ghost whose mother had died, when all the eyes of all the creatures were still on their knees. So not like they would look at their knees, but that's where their eyes were on their body. Their eyes were still on their knees. Invited all the ghosts of his kind to his house. As all the same kinds of ghosts are living in the same town, and called the homeless ghost to hear the music, which would be the most important part for the ceremony of his mother's birthday. But after all the invitees had gathered to his house and ate and drank to their satisfaction, then the homeless ghost knocked the wood as a sign. So I started to cry from that morning till the evening. But as I never eat or drink since the night he had corked me inside that hole, then my voice was entirely stiffened or dead. I was unable to cry anymore. And as all these invitees had eaten and drunk to excess and still were eager to hear my crying, so after the whole town of them, with the homeless girl ghost who carried me to that town, had tried all their efforts to make me cry and failed, then he started to split the wood into two with an axe. Luckily, When the wood was half broken, the snake first found his way out, as he was thinner than me, and when visible to these ghosts, unexpectedly, all of them ran furiously to the house of the famous ghost who invited them there and hid there. But as the wood had already nearly broken into two, so I tried my best and found my way out as well without hesitation. I ran into a far bush and hid there before they came back, and it was already empty. So it was this time they knew that it was a person crying in it. This is how I escaped from the homeless ghost who was carrying me about, and before the dawn, I had traveled very far away from that town and then entered into another town and started a new life with new ghosts. Immediately, I entered this town. I went round it and saw a ghost who only resembled earthly people among all ghosts who were living there. Then I entered his house. I saluted him with respect, and he answered me exactly as an earthly person. Now, you recall, you may know or you may not know this, but in many African villages, maybe even today, but certainly in the past, you didn't really need a door on your place. People walking by, travelers would just come in and go out of people's homes, and the people in the homes were very gracious and would feed them, etc. So this is what's happening to him here. That's why he just walks up in these people's house. They don't have no door, they don't have no gate, they don't have no bars, nothing like that. So after I saluted him with respect, and he answered me exactly as an earthly person. He gave me a seat at once. After that, I asked him to give me food, as I did not eat anything since I escaped from the homeless ghost who was carrying me about. But as he was a kind ghost, he gave me the food without any question. After I ate the food to my satisfaction and rested for some minutes, then I asked him whether he is an earthly person, as I was doubting. He replied thus, I am and I am not. But as I did not know which is to be held as the truth in these two answers, so I told him I do not understand what he means by I am and I am not. When heard so from me, he started his story and also the story of that town as follows. You see, the whole of us in this town are burglars, and we have burgled uncountable earthly women in every earthly town, country, and village. You earthly person, listen to me well. I shall tell you how we are burgling earthly women today. If an earthly woman conceives, we would choose one of us to go to her at night, and after the woman has slept, then he would use his invisible power to change himself to the good baby that the woman would be delivered of whenever it is time. But after he has driven out the good baby and entered into the woman's womb, he would remain there, and when it is time, the woman would deliver him instead of the good baby, which had been driven out. And the wonderful secret, which all the earthly persons do not understand, is that before 2 or 3 months that the woman bore him, he would develop rapidly as a 1.5-year-old baby and would be very attractive to everyone, particularly the woman who bore him as a good or a superior baby. Having developed to that attractive state, he would start to pretend to be sick continuously. But as he was very attractive to this woman, then she will be spending a lot of money on him to heal the sickness and also sacrificing to all kinds of gods. As this inferior baby has invisible power or supernatural power, so all the money spent on him and also the sacrifices would be his own, and all would be stored into a secret place with the help of his invisible power. But after the woman has spent all she has and become poor, then one night he will pretend as if he has died. So the woman who bore him as a superior baby Her family and other sympathizers would be saying thus, "Ah, that fine baby dies." But they do not know that he is not a superior baby. They would bury him as a dead baby. But the earthly persons do not know that he does not die, but simply stops breathing. But after he is buried, then he would come out of the grave at midnight. Then he would go direct to the secret place where all the monies and the sacrifices as sheep, goats, pigeons, and fowls all would be alive and are stored by his invisible power. And he would carry them to this town. So, you earthly person, if you reach your earthly town and if you hear that a woman is delivering babies who die always or continuously, then believe we are those babies. And all the earthly people are calling such a baby born and die. But if you do not believe this story, if a born and die baby dies from a woman after he is buried, watch the grave in which he is buried. And after the second day, try and go to that grave and dig it out. You'd be very surprised that he would not be found there anymore. But he has come back to this town. We have no other work to perform more than this in this town. So the whole of us in this town are called burglar ghosts. But after he told me the story of their town and also about the born and die babies, I was very impressed and surprised. He told me too that the whole of them are feeding on anything that earthly people have, and said further that this is the meaning of I am and I am not. When I first asked him whether he is an earthly person, because they were living as earthly persons and also as ghosts. After he related the secret of the born and die babies, then he asked me whether I should be living with him in that town. And I said yes. So he gave me a separate room in his house. But as I was living with this burglar ghost, and he was taking great care of me as if he was my father and mother, so one day he told me that I should take care of everything in the house, and said that he would go to a certain town which belongs to earthly people tonight. He said that he would return in 10 months' time, because he had told me before that he would try the wonderful invisible power once in my presence before I would leave him to believe all his saying. Of course, as he told me like that, I did not believe him at all. And I did not know what he was going to do in that earthly town. And also, I did not know the name of the right earthly town he was going to. So when it was about 1 o'clock in the midnight, he became invisible to me. Because I did not see him walk out from the house on foot, so it remained me alone at home. But after he became invisible or gone away, I was playing about in this town, as I could not stay at home always. But as it is not hard or very easy for a young boy to get a friend of his rank, by that I became a tight friend with a young ghost whose father was a rich ghost and also a native of that town. When I was playing around the town, this young ghost taught me how to speak some simple ghost language. Of course, I was unable to speak it fluently at that time. Both of us were playing about in the town in such a way that I did not remember to start to find a way to my hometown again. But one night at about 1 o'clock in the midnight, when I slept, I heard someone knocking the door of that house. When I opened this door, which was a heavy, flat stone, it was this burglar ghost who had gone 10 months ago. Then he entered with bales of sewn clothes, sheep, goats, pigeons, fowls, all were still alive, and monies with all other used expensive articles. But when he loosened these bales of clothes, there I saw plainly many clothes which belonged to my friends and my mother in my town that were among these clothes, and was also surprised to see many clothes which my mother just bought for me and my brother before the war scattered all of us. After the second day that he came, we killed all the fowls, pigeons, goats, and sheep for the rest, burglar ghosts of this town, for his good luck as he returned safely with many expensive articles. And when I saw all that he brought, and also my own and my brother's properties, then I believed his story, which he told me before he went away. Of course, I could not ask him how he managed to get the clothes which belonged to me and my brother, as I was too young to ask him such questions. So I left them for him, and he sold all to another kind of ghost who had no invisible power to do such work. But I ate those animals with them. As I had already become tight friends with that young ghost before he returned from the earthly town, so one day, my young ghost friend told me to accompany him to his mother's town, which was about 20 miles away from that burglar ghost town. His mother was born and bred in this town, which is the 8th town of Ghost. Having reached there, his mother gave us food and drinks. And when we ate and drank to our satisfaction, then we were playing up all about in the town with the other young ghosts of our ranks that we met there. But as we were playing about there, I saw a very beautiful young ghostess. Then I told my friend that I want to marry her. So my friend told her and also recommended me highly to her. So by that, she agreed at the same time. But as her father was famous and prominent in that town, so he arranged the wedding day for the ghost's next wedding day, which was about 9 days to come. At that time, as all the ghosts have a special day for marriage. And so we will continue with this story tomorrow with my first wedding day in the Bush of Ghosts. My first wedding day in the Bush of Ghosts. Well, I hope you are enjoying the story as much as I am. As you can see, he went from being very conflicted and in a lot of very odd situations in the beginning to now where he's becoming like one of the ghosts. You can see he's like acclimating to the environment. So the story gets even more interesting as we go along. You'll see. It's a very, very different kind of story. All right. So for today, that's it. Remember, if you're looking at us on Facebook, don't forget to subscribe. Hit that subscribe button below. If you're watching us on, if you're watching us on YouTube, if you're watching us on Facebook, make sure to give us a like and give us a share. Show some other people that you really do care. If you got some enemies, turn them into frenemies by sharing one of our stories with them. We're over 100 stories right now, so we've got a whole lot lying in the cut. Be sure to go ahead and look through our playlist. My favorite, Doc Ock's favorite stories, and check out some of the ones that you may have missed. And remember, on Saturday and Sunday, we will be hosting the Doc Ock Marathon from 12 to 1, Saturday and Sunday, 9 o'clock p.m., our regular time. We'll be doing the children's story time. So you can join us then and bring your children as well. In the meantime, please be good, be great, and don't be late for your upcoming date. Peace out. I saw there.